Okay, good evening. Today is Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020, and this is the start of the Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Kevin, would you mind doing the announcements for us, please?
Just a moment.
Is not your name.
All right. Reminder, Town of Hanson dog licenses are due September 30th. A late fee of $25 will be added to the dog license starting October 1st. There will be a voter registration session on Wednesday, September 23rd from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Hanson Town Hall. This will be the last day to register to vote for the October 3rd special town meeting. Any citizen may register to vote online or by mail-in registration. Any resident who will be 18 years of age by October 3rd is eligible to register to vote by September 23rd. It's your vote, make it count. Volunteers are needed on the following committees: Facebook Upkeep Committee, 200th Anniversary, Conservation Commission Associate Members, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Economic Development, Finance, Highway Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, North River Commission, and Zoning Board Alternate. Applications for appointments and info on the committee are available on the town website at www.hanson-ma.gov. Upcoming meetings: Tuesday, September 29th, 2020, Board of Selectmen meeting, town meeting. I don't know why does it say that? It's not town meeting on September 29th, right?
No.
Should we say town meeting preview?
Okay. Town meeting preview. Saturday, October 3rd, 2020, special town meeting. Location: high school baseball field, 10 a.m. In the event of inclement weather, the town meeting will be moved to the high school gymnasium, same date, same time.
Okay, thank you. I want to entertain a motion to open up the hearing for the application of Sharam Mogaham, owner of Impressed LLC, for a special permit pursuant to Section 5IM of the Hanson zoning bylaw for marijuana cultivation, product manufacturing facility, and site improvements at 15 Commercial Way, Hanson, Massachusetts.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay, Kate, could you just give us a brief description on exactly why we're here on this, please?
Sure. Hello, Kate Federal, Town Council. Are you picking me up, Carol?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, oh good, okay. So tonight we're here to discuss land use. So this is not the typical purview of the Board of Selectmen, except for in the context of marijuana. So what we have to do is sort of the technical overview of what this establishment is going to look like and what the impacts of the establishment will be on the town. What the expectation is that the applicant will come and make a presentation through their engineers. The plans have been reviewed by our peer review, which it's hired by the town, paid for by the applicant, but it's a technical analysis of what the engineers for the applicant have presented. So essentially to confirm their figures, calculations, all of those things to ensure that the town is fully protected. So you'll begin the process tonight by having the presentation by the applicant and their engineers. We'll have comment by the peer review engineer. I believe the mechanical review is going to occur tonight. And should we need more information or should responses be required to that peer review, we'll continue this hearing to another night to further delve into the technical aspects of this establishment.
Okay, so who should go first, Kate?
So Ralph, I see, Ralph and Allie are here. I don't know if you want to start with the presentation or are you just going to go directly to the engineers?
Let's both do that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley.
Sir, do you mind coming up to the podium?
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to have my back to you, but,
No, that's fine.
okay.
It's more important that you're facing the camera.
Oh, okay.
Thank
We
you.
won't take it personally.
This is tough. I've never,
You can take your mask off when you speak to the mic, too. Thank you.
good evening, This is awkward for me. I'm just going to go like this, because I hate having my back to people. Good evening, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Massachusetts with Soley Engineering. Office is located on Newbury Street in Boston, Mass. With me here tonight is our project architect, Dennis Colwell, our mechanical engineer, Dan Denisi, and Casey Birch, who's the project manager for my office for the project. So we're here tonight to present the proposed cultivation and manufacturing facility. Also here is Sharam and Ralph from the applicant team. So I'm going to actually have Casey run through some of the technical details of our proposed site plan. Dennis Colwell will run through some of the architectural elements for the building, talk a little about the operation. Dan is here to talk about the mechanical system, but I'm not sure if we want to actually do a presentation regarding that or really just kind of discuss the comments and our responses. We received some peer review comments on those. We're preparing a response to those. But obviously this is obviously the opening of the special permit hearing. We kind of wanted to give an overview of the project and then answer any comments that the board may have. So, Casey, you want to we can start with the overview?
Sure.
You may have to come up.
Okay.
I'll go down to the point control boards.
So the project site is located at 15 Commercial Way. It's located in the Hanson Commerce Center Industrial Park. It's bound by commercial industrial facilities to the north, a private drive to the east that accommodates the neighboring property of 23 Commercial Way, and Commercial Way to the south, and Franklin Street to the west. It's approximately 1.79 acres, and it's located in the commercial industrial zoning district. It's currently improved with a 13,500 square foot industrial building that has loading docks to the rear, and it is accessed through a 90-foot wide curb cut that enters into pavement that's in pretty good, pretty disrepaired pavement, as well as very steep slopes along the front, disregarding all ADA compliant improvement. So the proposed development, I guess we can just go right to that. Unless, Kevin, you want to talk about existing. Do you want to switch to the actual site plan? Sure. Okay. So what we're proposing to do is demolish the 2,500 square foot extension in the rear, which was the previous loading dock area. And we are improving the site with an extension that's 6,800 square feet. The stories on it may have changed recently, like how high it is, but it was originally around 3 stories. And so that increased the overall area of the building about 4,000 square feet. The site is still being accessed via the site drive off Commerce Drive. We are reducing the 90-foot curb cut to about 50 feet. We're providing new pavement along the building frontage and additional pavement to the rear to satisfy parking requirements for this facility. The pavement to the front, we're repaving to make ADA accessibility actual thing, as opposed to the 10% that's out there right now. Now, to satisfy the increase in impervious area, we are proposing a detention basin on the northern portion of the property right there. That detention basin will collect 60% of the impervious area on site, and it will go through catch basin, and then finally to a hydrodynamic separator, which will collect all the floatables and treat 80% of the total suspended solids on the proposed property. The other portion of the building, other portion of the pavement we're maintaining is going to a existing catch basin with dry well infiltration systems. We are maintaining that system. We will be cleaning it out, but it is functioning today, so we decided to maintain it. We are decreasing the area to it just to improve it a little more, but that system is fully functioning, and we plan to maintain that in the front. We're also maintaining the existing septic system, and it was designed, I think, for a school. So this facility, obviously, it's way over-designed for it, so we will be maintaining it and using it in the future. I'm not going to go into too many details about the utilities, which our MEP can talk about later, but just, Kevin, do you want to point to where we're connecting into our electrical across Commercial Way? Yeah, so we will be tying into a pole across Commercial Way and coming across there, and then along the front of the building, and then to the rear where it currently comes in for electric and telecom. Water's coming in the same location. It will be upgraded, and we'll have MEP talk about that later. Oh, you're not plumbing, no, are you? Okay. And yeah, that's essentially the property. We are maintaining the pavement to the eastern side. I know there's a lot of questions about that. We're trying to maximize the existing site to the best extent practical, and we're maintaining the boundary of that pavement to the east. And, yeah.
So our project, we've already gone before the ZBA to seek approval for a variance for overall building coverage. That was approved at the ZBA's last hearing. I know there's going to be a site plan approval, which is going to, I think, be with a joint meeting with this board and the ZBA. We had our first meeting with Conservation Commission. That went well, and the next meeting is tomorrow?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll be continuing that, and our overall package has gone out for peer review, which we have received some initial comments. In addition to everything that Casey mentioned, we put in our package is a comprehensive landscape plan, because one of the things that we wanted to make sure we were focused on was, really enhancing the condition of the property from kind of how it sits today. We have some pretty extensive landscaping proposed. In front of the site, we're doing our parking improvements. We have an ADA accessible ramp accessing the building with landscaping on both sides of that, adding some additional trees through there. And the site itself is, currently has a pretty robust buffer along Route 27, and all this area is being maintained, so it's not going to create any potential impacts to neighbors or anything like that. We wanted to make sure we were kind of living within the confines of what's there to the best of our ability and still accommodating the overall goals of the project. And I think with that, Dennis, do you want to talk a little bit about the building design and what we're looking at there? And again, I know we don't want to bore you too much with too many technical details. We want to give you a thorough overview of the project, and then again, be here to answer any questions.
Hi, Dennis Caldwell from DCA. So Soli's kind of giving you a quick stat line of the size, square footage of the building itself. Generally speaking, inside of the building, we're going to be doing cultivation. We're utilizing VFU units, so they're vertical farming units. So within the actual addition that we're putting off onto the right side, that will be where cultivation, veg flowering will take place. The head house and the supporting spaces are going to occur within the existing building. So that floor plan is kind of laid out over there. We've got our traditional security check-in, offices, restrooms, locker room, gown up, gown down, places for people who are going to be working in the back of house area within the cultivation and manufacturing space to put on their personal protective equipment, etc. Within the space, obviously there'll be flower, growing, clone, mother. We'll be doing drying, packaging, trim, and then extraction as well. So, generally speaking, the flow and the pattern, everything's kind of occurring within the building, so you really don't see much going on outside. There is a delivery area off the front. It's a part of the addition, so we do have a loading dock. That's where we'll be doing secure loading and unloading of the product. Typically, it's done with a Sprinter van or transit kind of van, so it's not a large box truck that's kind of backing up. And then aside from that, you're going to have employee parking, very limited visitors, not a lot of visitors in the cultivation. It's not a dispensary, so you're not going to have retail clients coming in and out. It's really just people that are going there to work, and then you'll have your general deliveries. Aside from that, I'm not really sure what else you guys will kind of be looking for on the architectural end, but I'm here to answer any questions as well. I'm going to do some elevations. We are going through a little bit of a value engineering plan, which may, if anything, reduce the height of the proposed building, not increase. So we're already below the maximum allowable, but we may be even a touch lower.
How many stories is it now?
It's technically one single story, but what we're doing is
I'm sorry, how many stories does your plan allot for it to be?
So we have it's a single story, and then it's not a full story above. It's actually a mezzanine, and it's just in that area. So a mezzanine is just defined as 2/3 of the space, and then it doesn't count as a full floor.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What have you guys had to change from the cultivating to the manufacturing as far as the building itself and your plans, anything?
You mean the existing side?
Yes.
Comparatively? So the existing side, there was some light demolition that's going to occur within, it's very minimal, it was already kind of pretty vacant. We're going to have to redo and run plumbing within, so there'll be some saw cutting of the slab. The building itself, the roof and the exterior is going to have to be updated and upgraded anyway for updated building code, insulation. So the general building itself is going to get improved. And then the new addition is going to be completely brand new. It'll be a metal space package frame building structure that'll be basically kind of tacked on to the side of it. And when doing so, we're going to have to upgrade that roof and the existing roof as well. So more or less, it's going to be a whole new building, so to speak, within kind of a similar footprint. Obviously, we have that extension as well.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I don't have any questions about that. I really wanted to get to the findings, and how they're going to address the findings of the
Okay.
independent.
Yeah, if you have any other questions or operation stuff. Thank you.
So do you really want to kind of talk more about the report from the AEP review?
I mean, to me, like, you guys have done your due diligence, you've done your job to the best of your ability. We had somebody independently come and take a look at it, and they've got some key findings, and I just want to make sure that whatever you guys come up with is going to be responsive to those findings.
Absolutely. So Dan, do you want to come up and
Yeah. Laura, let me jump in here too. Just to be clear for the board too, we only have one peer review engineering company here tonight, and those folks are called the mechanical aspects of the engineering, and their name is what again? Hallam. Oh, there he is. So, and the other peer review engineering firm is going to come next meeting, which we believe will be on the 13th.
Have they already completed their review?
They have some review, they've done preliminary review, sent their comments over to the engineer, the applicant's engineer, and the applicant's engineer has responded or is in the process of responding. So they're back and forth, and their whole analysis should be complete by the 13th, which is what we're doing, we're going to have the CDA here as well. So I thought it would be best if we do that, because they're still working out, they're addressing all of the issues from the original review letter. But just so you have a version.
Yeah, awesome, thanks, Doug.
With chemicals as well.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
So we can review those key findings, and thank you for all that clarification. And again, yeah, the only peer review we have right now that we were here to talk about was the mechanical, because they're here. Would the board prefer to hear from the peer reviewer first and then our responses?
I think so, Ken. Because the thing, to be clear, when we had our hearings, the big thing that kept coming up, and you guys know this, is the odor. The odor. You know, it's going to reek, it's going to, you know, yada, yada, it's going to bring our property values down. So we just need some assurances that whatever has come up in the mechanical review, which these guys have done, you guys are going to address. So I think Kenny, it does make sense probably to hear from the peer review. And then,
That'd be great. Yeah, we're happy to do that. So,
Hi there. So I'm Jeff Silcox with Hallam ICS. So we've been hired by the town of Hanson to do the peer review on the project and specific to odor control, odor mitigation. So let me tell you just, as Deb mentioned, where the report that we furnish is in process, it's furnished as a draft. But let me tell you a little bit about the process we've gone through, what we've done, and where we're at. So the first thing we do when we start out is to take a look at the applicable codes for the facility. So we looked at, and it's contained in the report, which I think I can see you have copies out there. So we start out by looking at the Code of Massachusetts regulations specific to air pollution, and it's 310 CMR 70 is referenced in the report. We look at the 2015 International Mechanical Code, as well as any specific bylaws the town of Hanson would have. So we start there and say, what does the code require? From that standpoint, we look at the documents that have been prepared for the job. So there was a letter that came out, an engineer's letter by Creative Engineering Consultant, CEC, that talked what I would describe as the design strategy or design approach for odor mitigation. And it really talks about what I would call a three-tiered level. It's uncomplicated. And a three-tiered level. First, it talks about using differential pressure control within the building to contain odors within the spaces so that odors aren't escaping out into, say, office areas, but they're contained in certain areas. Secondly, it looks at an air purification scheme using some APUs, air purification units, which utilize both ultraviolet light and ozone to what I would say continuously suppress and mitigate odors within the spaces themselves. Okay, so the space is continuously, odors are being generated, the APUs are continuously being used to suppress those. And then finally, any air that is exhausted from the facility is being passed through a carbon filter to significantly mitigate any odors that are actually released to the atmosphere. And you might say there's a fourth element that the design can't take credit for, but there is a certain amount of dilution that happens by the time that air is pushed out of the building when it reaches the property line just by mixing in the atmosphere. So there's a bit of that goes on. So the strategy, I think, was clear to us, and from there we went and reviewed the design documents that have been put together. So that was essentially two sets of drawings. There was a permit set, as well as I think it's called a 95% bidding set. We looked at that, and I think that because those drawings are works in progress, they're not yet complete, we had just some areas that were unclear to us between what was described in the letter and what was described in the documents, principally because the design documents are not yet complete. So we generated a draft report of those findings, and along with some questions which are also in the report. And our plan is to review those with CEC, to resolve those, and then to issue a final version of that report. I would say that overall there's no quarrel that we have with the design. There weren't gaping holes, mostly just, as I say, things that were unclear at this point because of the state of development of those documents. The strategy to us is, as I say, is uncomplicated. I would point out that the design strategy does utilize components which are consumable, you might say, that being the carbon filters that are referenced need to be replaced, so that, so in order for the design to work over time requires intervention in terms of the way the building is operated, the way that it is maintained. The carbon filters, for instance, may need to be replaced annually. So You can have day one, the system will work. It doesn't work indefinitely, they have to be maintained. Likewise, to make the differential pressure control to contain odors within the facility, you've got to have properly operating mechanical equipment for that to continue over time. And then finally, the air purification units themselves utilize light bulbs that have to be replaced every 7,000 to 8,000 hours, so approximately once a year. So again, if the bulbs aren't replaced, then you lose the effectiveness. So that's it's not only the design, but it's the consumables, components that need to be kept in a state of readiness and to be used and do their job. So that's, I think that's in a nutshell.
I think the other area that when we had our hearing that people had expressed concern about, particularly the chair of conservation, had been very concerned. At the time, the plan was not to have as green a processing as I think they've now subsequently proposed. But with the waste product, and was there any potential danger to the wetlands, the aquifer, et cetera, because it is right near the Taunton River watershed and our well water and a variety of other things. We're just one big watershed here in Hanson anyway. So was there any concern that you came up with respect to that?
Yeah, so that was really not part of our purview. We really were looking at just the...
Okay, so Deb, will that be something that the second guys will be looking at?
Yeah, stormwater review, that's extensive, and that
Okay.
will be part of the presentation.
All right, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
The other thing I neglected to mention, that as part of our peer review also, in looking at the design documents, was we also reviewed the mechanical equipment schedules. We looked at, there were some cut sheets for the air purification units as well as the carbon filters. We also ran just some calculations to verify the equipment was properly sized to suit the spaces and so forth, and we found, at least at this level, that all checked out.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So you just said that there is a maintenance schedule already in place for all the equipment?
No, that wouldn't be our job as
Okay.
as a peer review. What I'm saying is that the design is utilizing components that essentially get used up over
Okay.
time, and then they need to be replaced. So what I'm saying is that in order for the design to keep working the way it's intended, the maintenance needs to be kept up on the equipment, specifically the carbon filters, the light bulbs that are in the air purification units, and then in order to maintain differential pressure in the building relies on the mechanical equipment to be properly functioning. So it's not just we build it day one and we forget about it. It needs to be maintained to be effective.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Kenny, I did have one question, not for you, sir, I'm sorry, but mostly in response to the need for a maintenance schedule. I'm wondering if Ally or Ralph or, anybody can address that, because, it's great that this has all been designed to mitigate odor, but again, we need to mitigate odor and make sure we're doing it on a regular basis. So I'm just hoping that you guys
Ralph,
are
do you
going
wanna
to
speak
say
to
you've
that?
got...
Can I stand here and speak? Or?
Yes, if you speak loud, you can.
Hi, Ralph Greenberg, Impressed LLC. We have a design standard operating procedure. We handle all of our maintenance procedures. So if it's a year or above, there'll be 9 months and 6 days in order to facilitate those things. So everything that we have in our maintenance and preventative maintenance applications will be handled to the liking of the selectmen and the town for sure.
Great.
So we will make sure that carbon filters, pre-filters, secondary filters, charcoal filters, and any light bulbs will always be maintained in the scheduled maintenance procedure. For
Thanks,
sure.
Mr. Greenberg. I was hoping you were going to say that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say, I believe, select board, that there is an operations and maintenance procedural document that I have received. I don't know, where it is, but I believe I have received one. So there
Okay.
is sort of a written procedural document that I do have that I'm not sure the engineer. I thought that maybe you guys provided that. So I do have that I can get that to the board as well. And also, I thought I sent this to the review engineer, but maybe not, but I'll make sure that takes place before the next meeting.
Thank you.
And to be clear on the process, if the board, after next meeting or after it feels comfortable, is inclined to issue the special permit, you can impose those conditions that everything is built consistent with the plans that as approved, with the maintenance schedule, with the recommendations of the odor control engineer, the mechanical engineer, and the site plan. So you're going to incorporate all of those requirements in your decision. It's standard.
Perfect. And one more question. Kate, I had a question for you. I noticed in the peer review report, there was some comment alluding to the fact that we don't have a bylaw in Hanson for odor. And is that something we should contemplate? Or is it covered by some mass general law, you know, which again was kind of embedded in this, a reference to that, but...
So, you know, when we wrote the bylaw, initially we just mirrored the medical marijuana bylaw, but where we have that authority to impose conditions relative to odor is right in the HCA, because I thought of it. And I put it as a condition of an HCA that they provide an odor control plan, and we'll just incorporate it as a condition into the special permit, no problem.
All right, so you don't think there's an additional need for an additional layer of a bylaw or, okay.
You know, if you wanted to go back for future applications, fine, but we've already protected the town in that respect.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, good.
So I think that was a great overview. Dan, I think if you just want to maybe just see if you can address it.
So we can address.
Yeah, you might have to come up.
Dan Hanson, Creative Environment. Okay, so the comments that were brought up, we can address. In regards to the filters, once they're loaded, there is a building automation system. We're measuring the pressure across the filters, so the building automation system will tell you when those filters need to be replaced. So that's going to further add to that. So in that building automation system, we'll also tell you if you know, there's a fault with the major equipment, not the APUs. Those are pretty much terminal equipment, and you guys got to keep that on schedule. And as you said, replace those bulbs like once a year.
Right, so they'll be notified when the equipment has to be replaced.
Yeah. So they'll get messages from the building automation system saying, okay, this is that fault. There's a fault with but not the APUs. That you just have to keep up with the maintenance.
And I can't imagine Rob's not going to change the filters and the light bulbs, because he obviously wants this operation to run as smoothly and as efficiently as possible.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, but any other comments, we will officially respond to these, and this, if they have to give an official response, and this send it off to you guys.
Okay.
So, is there any more detail? I mean, besides this?
I think we wanted to show the board that, you know, we have our professionals here, and we're working on responses. Not only to these, but as it was indicated, you know, we're working on responses to all other comments regarding stormwater and things like that. You know, all of our work was done in accordance with the Massachusetts Stormwater Manual, so we're confident that we're going to be able to address these point by point, give them responses, and satisfy their concerns. So we really do feel that this is the, you know, it's the right use for the property, and I think I think the design team's done a great job of kind of creating something here that can really be a good contributor to the town of Hanson. So we're excited about it.
Good. Is there anything else that we should know?
You might want to ask, I'm sorry, you might want to ask a little bit about security, not where each and every camera is, because you don't necessarily want that to be disclosed, but, you know, what essentially that plan looks like, and, you know, you talked about screening, but are there other kinds of improvements to the property which help prevent diversion and things like that?
So just with regards to the security measures, we are going to have to meet CCC requirements as well. So there will be 360 cameras covering every piece of the property on the exterior and the interior. In addition to that, so we'll have security on site. Additionally, the generator will provide 24-hour, 24/7 backup for any type of outages. So security will always be in place. Aside from that, that's pretty much the most part of it. There is a vault inside that will store finished product. Additionally, other security protocols. Again, I can't get into the specifics, but deliveries are varied on different schedules, different vehicles, different routes, those type of things, so that no one can kind of plan quote-unquote heist or a holdup, that type of thing.
And waste product is secured as well, right?
Yep, green waste to be
Yep.
secured until it's destroyed, correct. There's a room for that and everything.
And, you know, from a site standpoint, you know, the security measures are really kind of built around the building itself. So we're not proposing, you know, gates and fences around the entire property. You know, this is more of a manufacturing cultivation facility. We don't want it to feel like it's a prison or anything like that. So our security measures are really focused on the building itself and the building envelope itself and complying with the CCC requirements. We are not proposing extensive fencing around the property or gates at the driveways or anything like that. From a design standpoint, we want it to...
Generally, visibility and being connected around the neighbors is safer than ever being a fortress and hidden. So.
But again, to get access to that building, there's going to be rigor around that, to get into the building, I should say.
Yeah, like I said,
There'll be
the
rigor
security
around
measures
it.
are focused in the building and the building envelope,
Yep.
not from a site standpoint. So,
Yep.
and
There'll be
that
two
was...
points of check. You can't just walk in through the first door. You get in, you're into a vestibule, then you're checked, then you have to be buzzed through. Once you're
Yep.
buzzed through, you then need a key card to actually access the different points of delineation beyond that initial office. So you could be a guest and get in through two different points, and you'll get your security, your ID, or taken, and you'll be logged. Once you get into that first piece of space, that's kind of an office general area. You still have to move even beyond that to even get to the production product area.
At some point, will you discuss your security measures with Chief Mix, the police chief?
Yeah, we always do. So we're definitely open to do that whenever he's ready.
Good.
And I think we'd also want fire protection discussions with our fire chief.
That's a good question. Is there a fire suppression system in this building?
Is this required to have sprinklers? At
What's this total square feet?
I think it's over 12,000, so it would be required. Yeah.
I think it's less than that. 7,000, thank you.
Well, 7,500.
I'm building a building that's 7,400, that's the only reason why I know that.
Yeah, that's Mass GL. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So you guys will work with our two chiefs and make sure they've got a comfort level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, usually our security consultant, we do have plans, so we can provide and show those. We just typically don't bring them to public meetings.
Selectman Hickey has a question.
You're redoing the parking lot.
Yes.
And is it going up to 56 spots or down to 56?
So we're proposing a total of 38 parking spaces, which actually meets the zoning based on the use.
Okay.
And we're kind of improving, if you go out there now, it's kind of like a big sea of asphalt. It's not striped, it's not really orderly or designed. We're actually providing, striping, so it's very clear where the spots are. And again, we're providing additional parking lot to the north of the building here with an additional 14 spaces. So overall, we're at 38 parking spaces. It meets the requirements from the zoning code standpoint.
Okay, so overall 38.
Yes.
So there'll be 4 trees planted?
Yeah, we're proposing trees along the front. We're proposing some plantings in the basin as well. That was one of the comments that we got, so we're going to work on that as well to make sure that we have a response to that as well. It's a little bit challenging because we've got like an existing facility that is really deficient from the zoning standpoint, so we're actually improving it quite a bit. The question is, like right now, the pavement goes all the way up to the property line. We're maintaining that edge. We're trying to pull it in where we can and add some additional green space, which I think is going to be a really good improvement to the property. We're just kind of dealing with a site that's already has a number of deficiencies. So we're trying to, we're not exacerbating anything, and we're trying to improve it as best we can.
Okay, thanks.
What did you
Ralph.
say the number of employees were? Ralph, how many employees are you having? 20.
You are 20 now, but were you going to increase it, or it's staying at 20?
The style of
That's a
growth.
good question.
And we designed it to accommodate for 22. So if there's a little bit of room for like a 10% growth.
So the manufacturer component doesn't change the amount of employees?
It doesn't, no.
The style of growing they're actually doing is going to reduce the need of employee staffing. It's the agrify units are kind of automated.
Because you're maximizing all the products, so you need less people in this?
Yeah, it's individual pods. It gets into a little bit deeper into the weeds, so to speak.
Yeah,
but
we can have that conversation.
It reduces the
Fascinating stuff.
human.
I just wanted to ask you about the trees before Matt Dyer did. That was all.
Yeah. Selectman Dyer wants to know what type of trees you're going to be planting.
Yeah, he's going to be trouble.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Shots fired.
Anything else, Kevin, that we should know?
You know, at this point, I know we're going to be coming back to you, we're going to be kind of going through the site plan in more detail. You know, again, we're happy to answer any other questions or address any other concerns. If there's anything you want to make sure we incorporate, you know, we'd be happy to do that, but I think we've...
Kenny, you know what you might want to ask? I'm sorry to be cross-budget, but do you want to address what Laura's concerns were relative to how you're using your processed water, just to educate the public, because that probably won't come up on the 13th, and the energy efficiencies, how you try to address that?
Sure, so I can touch on that a little bit. We do actually have a process where we're putting in a 20,000 gallon underground processed wastewater tank. So that's going to essentially, you know, collect all of that from the, you know, from the various operations of the facility. It's alarmed so that we know when it gets to a certain elevation, the water elevation, and that'll be pumped out as needed in accordance with, you know, all the CCC requirements and state codes and things like that. So we do have, we built it into the facility, we built it into our plan, so we have a collection system for that. It's not going into the septic system, you know, that's just for wastewater effluent, and we do have a separate system for the wastewater.
And what checks and balances do you have to make sure that that tight tank doesn't leak?
Well, I mean, all of these tanks now these days, they come usually most all double walled. We can provide, you know, cut sheets for the specifics on the tank that would be used here, because we did design it based on a specific tank manufacturer and product. And those have, you know, a number of, you know, kind of safeguards built in. At this day and age, you know, we really can't put anything in the ground anymore that doesn't meet and exceed all those stringent requirements, because they want to protect it exactly.
And now, I think Ralph had told us maybe the last time, or I don't know, one of the last meetings we had, that the process that they were using was going to be far less toxic than what they had originally planned. Not that they were going to have a toxic process, but less chemicals, less, you know, alkaline, that type of thing. Can you guys address that? So is that the tank, you know, you're able to use the system because of the fact that it's...
I think that probably goes back to the ag where I don't know if you're the best to talk about that.
And to talk to a point, Ralph, were you referring to?
The solvents extractions that we were using?
Yep.
With the extraction side of things, the manufacturing water?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Because, Ralph, as you recall, in one of the hearings, our chair of conservation was extremely concerned with using solvents in proximity to wetlands and all of that, and then whether the tank would, you know, resolve it, or if there was leakage or any type of issue like that.
Yeah, no, there's no solvents within the nutrients or the feeding system for the plants by any means. And the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission, has very strict guidelines on testing our plant and our process. So anything would meet the requirements of what you're asking.
Now, what about the processing, Ralph? Are you going to be using solvents in there?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And our extraction process will be a zero solvent process. We call that solventless extractions. So
Thank you.
pressing and heat.
Is that it?
I think so.
Okay.
Unless anyone else...
So on the
There was a two-part, though.
13th,
What did you say? Something else. You had said something else. You had said the water, the
Energy.
energy,
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, the nice part about the Agrify units, the electrical draw on the grid is just so much more minimal than traditional grow, so that piece will be reduced as well. So they're individual, the best way to describe them, so instead of having a sea of trays and plants in one large room, you have these microclimates. So each one is almost like a tanning bed. If you imagine a tanning bed. Sorry to be kind of blunt with it, but so it's like a tanning bed with another one stacked on top. So what happens is, as you open the box, you can get in, you can service the plants, check them, do whatever you need to do. Aside from that, that door closes, and the computer program, which is fully automated, so it'll do irrigation, fertigation, CO2, all the different pieces that are needed to grow a plant and create photosynthesis. However, it's going to do it in a very particular finite fashion, so there's no waste. The other part too is you don't have anybody walking in, opening, shutting, cross-contamination, any of that work, because it's going to be closed unless an alarm goes back to the head unit and says, box 32 has an issue, you need to go in and actually address it. So for those purposes, if you imagine a room that's always kept perfectly temperate and the light's on and off when it needs to be, no human intervention into that, it's always going to be more efficient too. So these microclimates are why we're able to kind of stack and produce and hopefully grow at a great rate too. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, so on the 13th, we're going to meet here, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, so you have to continue it, make a motion to continue it to October 13th at, what time? 6?
6 o'clock.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys on the 13th.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Deb.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, next up, we're going to table that. Okay, vote to make recommendations of the special town meeting warrant articles. So, John, do you want to tell us first about FinCom first, and then?
Sure, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee tried to meet last Tuesday, I think it was, or last Monday, I'm sorry, I can't remember. And they did not get a quorum, so they weren't able to meet. The earliest they were able to meet is tonight, so they will not have their recommendations. I asked them to try to meet before your meeting, but they weren't able to do that. So as you go through it tonight, we won't know what the recommendations are until later on tonight when the Finance Committee.
I think we should recommend as many as we can. I mean, based on, you've had discussions with Todd, right?
We did.
And did you have discussions with Kevin, too?
Yes, but
Yeah.
not the whole committee.
Well, no, but you've got a sense of perhaps what Kevin's thought process, not that he necessarily speaks for the whole group, but,
I have a sense of what they might.
okay.
Because whatever we don't recommend tonight is not going to be printed for town meeting.
Tonight's the night we have to recommend for it to be in the warrant. I thought we were able to do
No.
No, I mean, for the recommendation to be in the, yeah. I thought we could do it like we did because we had some last minute types of things that were up in the air the last time.
We could make the same recommendation at town meeting if you'd like.
But we want to do as few of those as possible.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
If there's a particular one where you just can't get any consensus.
Yeah, then we'll wait for town meeting.
Yeah.
If not, it's nice having it.
Yeah.
All right. John, you want to read through these?
Sure. So I'm going to start with Article 1. Article 1 is the unpaid bills article. So I've listed them all out. It's a sum of $758.59 from the $294 from free cash, and then the rest are from Recreation Enterprise Fund retained earnings. And those are just all the unpaid bills that we have received so far.
I move to recommend.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. It's just,
I think Mr. Bloss had his hand up.
No, I'm saying aye.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night,
Thank you.
guys. All those in favor of placing Article 1? 5-0. Good, John.
Article 2 are supplements to the appropriations that were voted at the July 29th, 2020 annual town meeting. 6 of them. The first one is, the total is $111,100. The reason why we have more money, this money is going to be coming from taxation. The reason why we have more money to come from taxation is because the state has given us our Chapter 70 number and our unrestricted government aid, or what they call UGA. They've given us that number. Those are the 2 largest aid accounts, and we have received those 2. And we do have, both Todd and I had assumed that the UGA account was going to be down over the last year. The state's been able to keep that level funded with fiscal year 20, and that's the amount where this money's coming from. So this is state aid money that we will get, and so that's why it's going to be coming from taxation. You try to use taxation money for one-time for budget items, and that's why the taxation is being used on this budget item. So the first budget item is $3,000. The Conservation Commission, and that's for a Crooker Place Hawks Ave land appraisal. And I think in your packet, I had a map of the land that's in question to do an appraisal on that property. So that's going to go into the conservation budget to do that.
And we're doing an appraisal, I would assume, in anticipation of potentially purchasing that as open space?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, okay, and then number 2 is police capital outlay for $50,000. That's a police cruiser replacement. The police had initially had 3 cars in their budget. When we had to cut the budget in order to get to the school's amount earlier, back in July, we had to cut 2 of them out. This is putting 1 back in now that we have the funding for it. So they're still down 1, but they're getting 1 back. Police capital outlay is $10,000. Those are new radios. The fire department has received a grant for new radios, and it'll cover all of the fire radios, but it won't cover the fire and the police radios. So this is this will cover the rest of the police radios, and now we'll have the new radios that will be able to talk to the new Rock Regional Communication Center. $31,100 is Council on Aging salaries. That's money that was initially paid out of the supportive daycare for van drivers. The supportive daycare can't function right now, but we still need to keep that going for when the state decides that it might open it up, and we'll be able to do that. If we don't do this, the revolving fund does not have the funds to keep those van drivers on the payroll, and we'd have to come up with another funding source or furlough them or lay them off. So they wouldn't be around for when the state decides to open up and allow us to continue the program. $2,000 from the Board of Health expenses were for personal protective equipment. That is, it may be CARES Act or COVID-19 related, although I'm trying to remember I think it's supposed to be what I call backstock. Things we're supposed to have on hand anyway in the event of some sort of major event or calamity. Syringes, things like that go bad. So I'm not sure whether or not it would be COVID-19 related, so that would be going into the budget. And finally, water expenses for $15,000. That's emergencies and potential water purchases from Brockton, just in case we need it.
And that doesn't need to come from the water budget, that comes from?
Technically, the water is part of the general fund revenue for in this town in general.
I've just never seen us break it out that way, but okay, yeah. All right, I make a motion to approve
Article 2.
Article 2.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
I'm voting here. Are we approved?
I meant to say recommend.
To place.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
While we're doing this, are we approving tonight as well?
When you say approving, yes, we're recommending.
Yeah,
We're recommending that we put it on the warrant.
We already put it on
It's
the
on the
warrant.
warrant.
Okay, so we are approving.
We are recommending
saying,
it.
okay,
Yeah,
so this
yeah.
is where we can get into split votes or whatever, where some of us might say, yes, I
Yes,
approve,
that's
some of us
possible.
might not.
Yes.
Okay. I was unclear on that. Thank you.
So we're 5, you're good on that one?
I'm good on that.
Okay, 5-0 Greer. Article 3.
Article 3 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $742,050 and to transfer from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation fund the sum of $61,000 for a total amount to be transferred of $803,050 to pay for the capital projects that are listed below. And again, these capital projects are ones that were on the capital plan. We took some of them or most of them off in I keep saying the spring, but I guess it ended up being July when we had town meeting. I keep thinking it was May, but it was really July. So we took them off because we weren't sure about our funding sources. Now that we have free cash, we're certified. We're kind of going back to them again. So the first one was town hall maintenance repairs of $40,000. We've had mold issues, leaking door issues, leaking water, faucets, and restroom issues. We've got several issues that are going on that this $40,000 will be used to fix. So I've recommended that one. That would come from free cash. The second one is a server switch or network upgrade of $210,000. That'll allow us to get our communications on voice over internet protocol, or what they call VoIP. We can get off the copper lines that are causing a lot of problems with static and the old technology from a long time ago. Again, I recommend that one. On the fire, the replacement of car number 2, that was on $67,000 to come from free cash. That was the amount that it was on it's the next car to be replaced on the capital plan. I recommended that one. The next one is for fire, SCBA, or self-contained breathing apparatus equipment for $40,000. And that I recommend that one to come from free cash. That is I believe it was $100,000 is the state portion of that. That's a grant that we're matching. $40,000 is the amount that we need to put in for that one. Article 5 is 3 heart monitors or defibrillators for $61,000, and I recommended that one, and that would come from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriations account. That's exactly why we have that fund, is to pay for things like that. Number 6 is the middle school roadway replacement of $210,000. That would come from free cash. That was on an updated plan from the schools. I do not recommend that one, only because it kind of came in at the last minute. It was not on the approved list from before. I'm trying to fund the ones that were on the list beforehand, even though this is a new one. And even if we were to fund it, we wouldn't be able to really get rolling with it until the spring anyway. And I'd like to hold on to that money and kind of keep the powder dry, just in case things go south between now and May.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. Number 7 is for the Indian Head and Middle School window balances replacement. That's $50,000. I do recommend that one to come from free cash. And again, that would be to fix the existing window balances that can't take the weight of the current windows in the school. Article 8 is for the Indian Head School. It was to replace the phone system. I believe 8 and 9, and then in the next article, it's kind of split up, but it's all one thing. It's to replace the phone system in general throughout the school system, all the schools and the high school. So they have $27,948 coming for the Indian Head. And then number 9 is the middle school for $32,102. Again, these amounts are right from the regional school district's capital plan. I recommended both of those to be paid from free cash. And then finally, the highway is stormwater management phase 2. $65,000 we're required to mitigate stormwater in the town. We have I think it's 4 or 5 phase approach. We're in phase 1 and we're going to be moving into phase 2. We're required by the EPA in order to do that. So I would recommend that one to come out of free cash. So the total of all of those, even including the one I did not recommend, is $803,050.
So I vote to recommend Article 3, but accepting out the roadway replacement for the middle school.
Second. See Article 3, line 6.
Line 6. Yep.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. I agree with that. And one quick thing on line 4 for the fire equipment, that's the one, the grant, that's a $60,000 grant that the fire department got that we're going to, in essence, lose if we don't have time meetings. So that really saves us some money. So thank you to those guys. Article 4, John.
Article 4 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $2,335 and to transfer from the previously voted Article 11 of the May 6, 2019 annual town meeting the sum of $84,378 for a total to be transferred of $86,713 to pay for the Hanson Regional High School capital projects listed below. And the two that are listed below was for the high school is to fix the existing fire lane for $23,000, and also to the high school portion of replacing the phone system, which would be $63,713. I've recommended both of them, and the funding source would be the old article of Article 11 of May 6, 2019's annual town meeting. There's $84,378 left over for high school roadway repairs. They weren't used, and according to the school, they've talked to town accountant Todd Hassett, they are not going to be used and they're available for surplus. So it's taking money that we've appropriated to them in the past. They don't need it anymore. We're rolling it over to the new use that they can use that money for. And because the amount is $86,713, the makeup amount is $2,335. That would come from free cash.
That accountant in you comes in handy.
I'll say.
Go ahead, Mr. Dyer.
Quick question, could we get more of an explanation on fixing fire lanes?
Again, down below there, it's just there's roadway and drainage problems that does not meet standards.
Okay.
Do you want more than that?
Well, but, I mean,
It's going to be paired with the $10,045 that are still on the books to do that. So they're going to kind of take those two amounts together and use that 33 or so to fix it.
and this is our prorated portion, and Whitman
Yes.
is going to be funding their prorated
Yes,
portion?
but again, then that is a valid point there with that right now Whitman does not have a special town meeting scheduled,
Right.
so they will not fund that till May. So if they were to fund their end, so they couldn't get rolling on this right now unless they only use our money.
And I'm sorry, John, just to be sure, what is Whitman's portion of this in May?
I don't know. It's usually a 60-40 split on any.
Yeah, the 60-40. The school assessment doesn't change the way the 60-40 on this.
Right.
Right, Kate?
I think that capital is spelled out differently. I'd have to
It
go
is.
back and look at
Yeah.
the agreement, but
58-42.
it's spelled out differently
So-
than the operating budget, which is on the statute.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
She said it could be separated. She's going to check into it.
I'll check.
So the school assessment only was concerned with the school assessment and how much money we were going to pay. It has nothing to do with town meeting or the
Capital.
or any other school committee split or anything like that. Just the money we were going to pay.
She's going to double
Well,
check
the
that.
capital is definitely, if I remember correctly, a different paragraph in the agreement. So I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure that's based on the per pupil. But I'll double check.
So if it's based on per pupil, then it's a 60-40.
Yeah.
Hanson's 40 and Whitman is 60.
Yeah, I think so, but I really don't want to
That's how you have to
clear
assume
it
it is.
yet.
Well, I mean, if you're saying that they can't do any of the, first of all, we don't know if Whitman's going to fund this, right?
Same with the school committee
So how are
seats.
they going to do any of this
Yeah.
until the
We pay
spring?
more in
That's a
FSC.
story for another
And I
day.
know that thing is on.
That is a very unappealing alternative to me, to use our money to get things rolling and hope that Whitman gets on board. So I don't feel as though I can really recommend these. I'm hesitant, but I just feel like if we don't know for sure that Whitman's stepping up with their portion for
Well, if
these.
Whitman's portion doesn't get approved, then it's null and void. They
Yeah,
can't
that's-
spend.
Right, but then what's the
They
rush
can't
for
do
us to do
40% of a parking
it? Then
lot.
why do we even need to talk about it? Because they're not even going to be bringing it up until their spring town meeting.
But we didn't know that when we created the warrant.
No, I know, but now we know it, so I just don't see the point in even having it on our warrant. Like, we'll just do it at the same time that Whitman is, and we'll have conversations, make sure they're on board. Like, I don't know, I don't like the thought that we will have authorized the expenditure for the schools to use this money, but in the absence of really knowing whether Whitman's going to affirmatively elect to do so too. It just doesn't, I'm just one person, but it doesn't appeal to me.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, I see what you're saying, Laura, but at the same time, we'll have this dance again in the spring. Does Whitman fund it? Does Hanson fund it? But to kind of go back to the logic of what John was saying earlier, where they might not be able to get to this until the spring, let's just hold off on it until the spring
That's
and
what I'm
revisit.
saying. Yeah, that's all I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think they'll be doing the only hesitancy I have is the thought that the fire lane isn't right. I'm just a little concerned about that, so, but again, if Whitman isn't funding it, then how are they going to get them enough money to fix it?
And we know Whitman hasn't already previously funded it?
They have not funded.
Okay. All right, so what do you want to do? Pass over Article 4?
That's what I move to do.
So you want to not recommend Article 4?
We want to, well,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
right,
I'm
we
sorry.
can't pass, well, at town meeting, we can pass over it, but we want to move to not recommend it, I
So,
guess.
Well, we've already placed it, so I'd like to make a motion not to recommend Article
Yes.
4.
Yep, second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Okay. Article 5, John.
Article 5 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $30,410 from the Community Preservation Committee's reserve funds to pay for the local share of the state matching trails grant. So that's, the state gave us a Mass Trails matching grant of $100,000, and this would fund our portion of that grant, which is $30,410, and it will be to create a new recreational foot trail over at the Plymouth County Hospital.
And Community Preservation has voted to place this, they've met and voted?
They have not. They've talked about it last week, and they're going to be meeting the 29th.
Okay, well, but yet we've got to have a vote tonight, so I guess I would vote to recommend this, and I guess we can pass over it if ultimately CPC does not vote to recommend it, because I don't want to contravene what the CPC committee ends up deciding they want to do. I think they'll be bullish about this. I mean, it's, you know, it's money from the state that's on the table, and it's in keeping with CPC usage, so I vote to recommend Article 5.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Article 6, John.
Article 6 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $14,000 to pay for an operational and comparative audit of the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School District. So we've talked about this several times. There's an operational and comparative audit that I bid out back in late February, and it came back with one bidder in early March, right before COVID hit, for $28,000. That bidder will keep that price alive in order to do this, and Whitman has already appropriated their end of the $14,000. We'd be splitting it with Whitman 1414 for the $28,000. So this would be funding our end of this.
I move that we recommend Article 6.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Article 7, please.
Article 7 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from overlay surplus excess allowance for abatements and exemptions the sum of $30,000 to pay for the fiscal year 2022 recertification year adjustments and the commercial, industrial, personal property cyclical recertification of the town's real estate and personal property values as required by Mass General Laws, Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016. So this is the revaluation of the town's properties. Used to be every 3 years, now it's every 5 years. And it's going to cost $30,000 to do that. Building schedules, income and expense figures are taken into account in the commercial industrial market. So it's required by the Department of Revenue.
I move we recommend Article 7.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0, Greer. Article 8, please.
Article 8 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $35,000 to pay for engineering costs related to the park to be located on the old Plymouth County Hospital site. And this is to design construction plans for the infrastructure and roadways for the proposed park at former Plymouth County Hospital. I have been in contact with the CPC chairman, Tom Hickey, and because I think at the last meeting, Selectman Ken said that you wanted to see whether or not they were interested in it, because this did qualify as...
Engineering does qualify.
Right.
Yep.
They had not received an application, and that they were probably not going to be able to turn it around in time for town meeting.
All right, well, I don't want to hold it up. I thank you for looking into that, so I move to recommend Article 8, because I think this is a very important piece of moving this forward.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Article 9, John.
Article 9 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $20,000 to pay for stump grinding, stump removal, and related improvements located at Camp Kawani. Again, it's removing the trees and the stumps or grinding them, and then reseeding and loaming right the area in front of the lodge. And the stumps will be used in Spinney's Bog for habitat reclamation purposes. That's lowered since we've been talking about it in the last week or so. There's a bid out, the 3-quote process is out, and I think today was I think at 5 o'clock was the was the deadline to get the quotes back into us to see how it is. I'm assuming it's not going to be more than this. That's why I've lowered it to $20,000. But I'll know tomorrow morning when I meet with Dory Jameson at the Recreation Commission what the bids were, and we'll go through them.
I move to recommend Article 9.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Article 10, John.
Article 10 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of, that's changed. I have $9,000 in here, but I just got a quote for $7,500, so that could be a change. To pay for repairs to the parking lot located at 228 High Street. Again, that's where the food pantry is. I've been working with Interim Highway Director Kurt McLean, and he was able to get a quote for $7,500 to, I think it was 100 feet by 50 feet. I just got it here. So it's, yes, it's 100 feet by 50 feet to remove any of the topsoil of that parking lot, large rocks or roots, and then to pave with a binder coat and roll, and then put an 1.5 inches of top coat on top of that. So I just got that. So that number is in 9,000 in here, but it should be 7,500.
Looking for a motion to recommend Article 10.
I cannot recommend, I'm recusing myself.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0-1, Greer. Article 11, please, John.
Article 11 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $55,000 to pay for 5 new compactors to be located at the town of Hanson transfer station. And again, this is to replace the compactors that are there now. They are in disrepair. If we were to move to another vendor at some point, we would have to replace these because first of all, they're old vendors' property, and second of all, they're unserviceable because of their age and the condition. If we were to use another vendor, the rental costs of a year would be somewhere in $20,000, $25,000. So it makes sense to purchase them, try to get an economy of scale, and see if we can get all 5 of them at once at a lower price instead of trying to rent them.
And the last time we met, the Board of Health had not yet voted on this, but have they voted on it
They
now?
have not voted yet, but it is on their agenda, the next agenda, whenever they're meeting next. I'm drawing a blank.
Okay, again, I guess if they don't vote for it, then we will simply pass over it. So I move to recommend Article 11.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Article 12, John.
Article 12 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $10,000 to replenish the conservation fund for open space management and related conservation purposes. They have about $13,000 in that fund right now. They want an additional $10,000 to work on the Hanson open space and recreation plan. And they give the explanation there. They want to increase accessibility to the public, create parking spaces, open space access points, and provide passive recreation information.
I move to recommend Article 12.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Article 13, please.
Article 13 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $25,000 to be added to the town's other post-employment benefits trust fund. Again, that's the other part of that will be coming out of the tax rate. This is an ongoing expense, so it makes sense to take it from the taxation as opposed to a one-time expense, which should be funded by one-time resources like free cash or some other fund. This OPEB is other post-employment benefits. Those include non-pension costs the town's required to pay, and the biggest one of those is health insurance for retirees. Our liability for OPEB as of right now, as of June 30th, 2020 measuring date, is about $19.5 million, and we have $132,000 in the trust fund.
And so, through you, Mr. Chair, to our town administrator, so $132,000 towards our $19,500,000 liability. Is that something that gives you pause? Are you concerned about that? And
Yes.
do we have, or are we working on a plan to address that, what would appear to me extreme shortfall that you've inherited?
Yes. Where this comes into play a lot is when we're talking about bond rating agencies. They like to see that we're putting money towards our liabilities. We have funds and resources to pay off things that we owe. This is a good start as in the fact that we've actually created a fund and we're putting something towards it. Obviously, $25,000 a year or $25,000 here and there is not enough given the liability of what we have. There should be more going into this, but the counter argument to that is if we can't get our operating budget to match revenue to expenses, should we be putting money elsewhere until we can actually make those match? So.
And I know we are not alone. This is an issue across, government in general. The schools have got the same issue. We've got the same issue. But okay, I mean, maybe that bears discussion at a future point. And
at some point, we're going to have to do some borrowing. And the better we can do on funds like this, the more money we can put towards them, the better the rating agencies see that as, okay, they understand what's going on, they're putting money towards their liabilities, I like that, perhaps we get a better rating, perhaps not. I think we got a boost at the last time we borrowed because of some of the policies we put in place. I think if we enhance them, we might get another boost.
Okay.
And lower the rate of borrowing.
Thank you. I move to recommend Article 13.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Article 14.
Article 14 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 to be added to the town's stabilization fund. So the Department of Revenue's guidelines say that the stabilization fund for a town should be with 5% to 10% of the operating budget. This $50,000 will get us very close to 5% when we won't exactly be there, but we'll be close to it. So we'll be on the lower threshold of where we should be if we're following the Department of Revenue guidelines.
Okay. I move to recommend Article 14.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0.
Article 15 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $25,000 to be added to the regional schools capitalization stabilization fund as established by the October 2014 special town meeting. So this is a special stabilization fund just used for capital for the regional schools. I think there's about $130,000 or $150,000 in there right now. I'm picking people's brain about how it should be used, and at least the thinking of the town accountant Todd Assett is that this money should be used for when something comes that we absolutely have to do out of the blue in between town meetings or something. It's like it truly is, I know that people don't like this phrase, but it truly is a rainy day fund for the schools or
Like
something.
pipes burst or something.
It's something happened.
Okay,
I was
catastrophic.
saying, well,
Yeah.
when can we use this?
Yeah.
And shouldn't they be using it already? And the answer was this from Todd was this is for the day that we hope never comes.
Okay.
where
I
we have
move
tap.
to recommend Article 15.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Article 16.
Article 16 is to see if the town will vote to make the office of tree warden an appointed position under the authority of the Board of Selectmen as per the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 1B. So right now, the tree warden is an elected position. If this article were to pass and then a ballot box vote in May also passed, they both have to pass, then the tree warden position would stop being an elected position whenever the last term of office expires. Then it would become an appointed position under the Board of Selectmen's control. But everyone has to remember that it has to pass at town meeting, and it also has to pass in an election in May. So
In
otherwise it
the
doesn't
interim, we don't have a tree warden, so is Highway
Yes,
taking?
we do.
Remember, we have an interim.
We appointed Steve Graham.
Oh, I probably was the meeting I wasn't at.
Correct.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
Yeah, so
great.
we do have a
Okay,
tree warden
good.
right now.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Can we just jump back to Matt Dyer a minute and tell us what the ramifications are, which I believe we already know if this goes appointed? And then my question is, Do we have any plans? How do we possibly afford it? So Matt, I mean, quickly.
Sure. So what Selectman Bloss is referring to is currently tree warden is an elected position, so therefore how the state law is written, they don't necessarily have to have a qualification. They don't need to be a certified arborist. And what Selectman Bloss is concerned about is if we decide to go from an elected position to an appointed position, we're now going to have to fall under a new set of guidelines saying that our appointed tree warden has to be a certified arborist. And I mean,
And we don't have a choice, that's the regulation.
Right, and that's the regulation, so we don't have a choice with that. And I think, yeah, there is a concern of, are we going to be enticed, is our position of a tree warden being an appointed position enticing enough for a certified arborist to put their hat in the ring? Is it worth their time? I think with it being a part-time position, I think with some younger arborist out there or someone that just wants the extra work, I think it might be worth their while. Maybe we could do, if that's not the case, if it's not the case,
Are you talking about someone applying for that position solely, have nothing to do with the highway director? Is that what you mean, Matt?
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So, but as you said, it could be appointed, so you could make it your highway director.
John's been doing some, and I don't think he's done, but John's been doing some research on that as well.
So, it could be appointed, whether it's highway director, we just tacked onto their position, or do we go solely to someone else? But as you said, if John has some other information that I'm not hitting on,
No, so what I was going to say is many highway directors are also the tree wardens.
Yeah.
So it's a position that it would be more like a DPW person. We don't have a DPW department here, but almost always any DPW person is the tree warden. And there's several positions that are in the general laws that have gone along by the wayside. Unfortunately, like tree warden probably is one of the ones that's still sticking around, but there's a lot of other things like that, like a gypsy moth custodian and weird things like that. You'd never think.
Because the last thing that I read, maybe.
But if we tack on to the highway position, which I agree, I know a lot of people do, does Mr. Dyer's articulation of the requirements still apply? Do they need to be a certified arborist? Okay. And so, so that's something we should keep in mind when hiring a highway person?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we could have Kate look at that, because what I read is it says that the state recommends that the person be an arborist.
Yeah.
From what I read, it doesn't say, but obviously we need the professionals.
No,
like
it's clear.
yourself.
I've looked it up, and there's actually, I looked this up years ago for various other reasons, but there is a requirement that they be certified arborists, and in fact, there's a Massachusetts Tree Warden Association, and I even emailed them and asked about this, and again, this was 2 or 3 years ago, and they responded back and said, absolutely, this is the requirement.
Is with Kurt was the highway surveyor in Hanover, and Kurt is not an arborist. Kurt was a tree warden there for 30 years, and what Kurt said is he had to have a pesticide license, and a pesticide license covered him for being the tree warden in Hanover. So let's, it's not up for debate. I don't know 100%, but it's something we don't need to talk about it tonight.
But given that though, but it does kind of matter, right? Because we're trying to figure out if we recommend it or not. So I don't know if we should zig or zag on this one.
Either way, we don't want it elected. Regardless of how the person's being compensated, we don't want that position elected. That's what we're talking about tonight.
That's true. And then, but to Mr. Dyer's point, if you're looking for a certified arborist, we may have to have a conversation up the road. Is that compensation enough? Or are you able to tap it on onto the highway position?
It's $3,000.
I thought it was.
But if we do get to that point, that position's still going to be appointed, not elected. So regardless, what we're doing tonight has nothing to do with the conversation we're having.
Point well taken, Kenny. And to be honest with you, we are a somewhat bucolic type of town. I think the tree warden position, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but it is kind of important. I think we've seen some examples where maybe, that's something that we really could have benefited from. And I'd like to have somebody who's got that special expertise. I understand what Mr. Bloss is saying, you know, do we want to paint ourselves into that corner? I would like to recommend this article. I vote to recommend
And
Article
then
16.
as far as the, you know, whether or not we need an arborist, that's a really discussion for another day. Mr. Dyer, go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to pull up, I actually am studying for my arborist certification.
Okay.
And that was part of the chapter, so I couldn't pull it up. But just going back to whether or not will we have the flexibility, you know, will we attract an applicant with this certification? If we don't, that's okay. We can always hire someone else, team up with another community like we have with IT director,
Yeah, good
you
point.
know, and whatnot. So
And then, Matt, is there a restriction on the amount of residents too?
yes, we passed that threshold.
Yeah, okay,
So,
all right. So there's a few things in there that have to be dissected, which
Yeah.
Kate will probably send you an email.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll send you a consulting fee.
So let's motion to
I
recommend
moved
this.
to
if that's
recommend
what-
it, but I don't think we got a second.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
second.
Matt second.
Okay, excellent. I think we discussed that. All in favor? 5-0. Okay, excellent. Thank you, guys. So that's the end of the special town meeting warrant articles.
Can you move on?
Go ahead, Kate.
Can I put a bee in your bonnet?
Yes.
So I don't know, because you guys have your ears to the ground, and it might be important for you guys just to think in your back of your mind for the pre-town meeting, whether or not you think any of these articles lend themselves to a consent agenda. And
Okay.
you probably have a better sense of how the residents felt about that. I don't know if you're worried about expediting it or not, but just, it's something to think about.
I don't see anything really problematic that would cause it, but, you know, we're continuously surprised.
There's probably a few articles. I mean, we actually whittled it down. We had 20-something.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, but I don't see anything that people, the tree warden one is maybe the one that.
we can separate that.
But then,
So to
yeah.
answer your question, Kate, I think yes, it probably is. Matt?
Well, I was going to say, if I remember with consent agenda, we read off all the articles, if anything, you know.
Can hold back,
Anything can be held, and we can discuss it.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you know, I mean, maybe
Yeah,
that's the way to
so,
go.
John, you want to work with Kate on that? Because that's going to need, we're going to have to make that decision before this gets printed.
Yes. Well, no,
Well, no,
no.
we'll hand out at town meeting.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Kate. Okay, next up, we have requests, dollar for scholars, request to use McClellan School parking lot on October 10th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for an annual electronic recycle day.
Mr. Bloss moves.
Second.
Absolutely.
Made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Old business. Okay, vote to execute FY17 to FY20 Fire Department Local 2713 International Associations of Firefighters, AFL/CIO Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Mr. Mitchell, are we skipping by the one-day liquor license?
Yeah, they canceled.
Okay.
So I am looking for a motion to execute this union contract.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Dyer.
I just want to make sure that we had reviewed this as we discussed, and everything came back good.
yes.
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 Yep,
Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
just got it back.
Oh, yeah.
All those in favor? Okay, 5-0. Next, we have Town Administrator Report. John?
Okay, it's going to be very short tonight. I just have two things. First thing is
Thanks, Kate.
we're going to have a new auditors for the town. Our former auditors, Lynch and Marini, have been with the town several years. They've done a fantastic job. Rob Lynch has really done great work with the town. We're going to be moving on to a new auditing firm, Powers and Sullivan. Frank Soretti and Mike Nelligan will be the partners that will be on the engagement here, and then a 3-year contract for $27,500 a year each year. So I'd like to say thank you to Rob Lynch for his great work, and then we just decided to move on with another auditing firm, and I'd like to welcome Powers and Sullivan. At some point, we'd like them to come in and meet everybody and kind of give their their standard greeting and answer any questions that you might have somewhere down the road. The second thing was I was on a call about the CARES Act with Plymouth County yesterday. Again, that's the money that's been set aside by the county to reimburse towns for COVID-19. On the call, now they've changed a little bit of what their deadline. The deadline is still going to be October 2nd to get in whatever they want for reimbursement. But if we can, once we get in everything that we can by October 2nd, then we also have we can send in what we know is out there that we haven't been able to submit yet. So a purchase order, some other thing that we know is happening. And as long as we can get that form into them by the 2nd, we'll then have until the 30th in order to get that amount in. So October 2nd is still the deadline for everything that we know about, for everything that we have hard copy, stuff that we have paperwork to send in. October 30th is now a deadline to fund the things that we know is in the pipeline, we just haven't got to yet.
Well, a little bit more time.
So it's a little bit. So just so you know, $220,000 will be submitted as soon as you've signed the warrant, which you've signed the warrant today. That's going in tomorrow as our second submittal for the CARES Act. Our total amount is something around $1.1 million. The first amount that we still haven't gotten word back on whether or not we're going to get reimbursed or not. We sent that in on July 9th originally. Was somewhere in the $34,000–$35,000 range, and now we're up around $250,000. Again, the schools have not sent their costs over yet. They're the elephant in the room. They have a lot of costs related to starting up schools with COVID-19. But I have emailed the school business manager, John Tuffy, and he did say he was working on it. Again, hopefully they can get it to me in time. They know the deadline, and they're going to have to do it somehow to get it to us.
How much money is left in that Plymouth County pot, do you know?
Off the top of my head, I know they started with around 90 million, and I want to say there's probably 17 or so that's been spent, but don't quote me.
I heard that there was a pretty significant amount, and I had also heard that one of the reasons they were upping the ante on the deadline was they want to reallocate to some of the cities and...
that is their plan, that
Yeah.
if we can't, if cities and towns can't use the money, then they want to reallocate it to people other towns who need it or who can find ways to spend the money. So I'd like to try to use our money as fast as before they reallocate it to someone else. That's ours, and we should have it. And then finally, just next week for coming attractions is a special town meeting preview, and that was it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Before we do,
Mr. Barr.
just a public service announcement.
Go ahead.
Get your census in. Do your census. I don't think we've had that on our announcements.
We have not had that on our
I
announcement.
did mine online. It was easy.
It was easy.
Yeah, it's very easy.
When's the deadline?
Anybody else?
I think
Mr.
the
No?
deadline is like the 30th.
No,
You have your census tonight?
no. I left that to Michelle.
All those in favor? 5-0. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.